what is attention? Definition of attention. Okay. So attention is has been dissected into many concepts from various fields of the researchers, and it's said that basically everybody pretty much has an understanding or ideas of what attention means. It's an obviously everyday language. So, but among all of these understanding or everyday language usage, three components are important, especially in the context of consciousness research. And they are selection, enhancement, and suppression. So as a start, I'm starting with William James, that's the founder of the modern psychology. His book contains this definition of attention. As you maybe some of you might have seen this before in your psychology class. Everyone knows what attention is. It is a taking position by the mind in clear and vivid form of one out of what seems several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thoughts. So this is a kind of the thing that you probably read before. And if you agree with that, then it means that you're not paying attention to the video right now, because it says at the end, it implies attention is bullshit, attention is crap. And that's not what he said, of course. So and in the instead of what he said, in the end, is that it implies withdrawal from some things in order to deal effectively with others. Okay, and among these statements, it's already containing three components of attention. One is that taking position by mind. This means that the focus or selection or access. And then of one out of seems several simultaneously possible, that's the sort of selection part. And then withdrawal from some things, that's inhibition. Okay, so the first one, taking position, is more to do with the enhancement or access or focus. Okay. And then attention can mean a lot of different things. One is that general arousal or alertness or readiness. And this, if you don't have it, your mind may be wandering. So it's not sort of a specific type of the content of consciousness, but it's more to do with the level of consciousness. But how they are related to each other is not super clear at the moment. Okay, but the concept-wise, arousal, alertness, and readiness, this is also sometimes called attention, and it's totally fine as it is. But you need to just make sure that this is meaning something different. And then another common things to talk about in attention is the gaze. When you sometimes talk in the everyday language, you're paying attention to something. It can mean that your eye movements or what you are looking at directly is a target of attention. Okay, and that's totally normal in the everyday kind of conversation and the situation, because what you are looking at is usually what you are attending to, but it's not necessarily the case, right? Like when you can do the blind touch, you don't need to actually take a look at your keyboard at all. And when you are moving or when you are playing sports, like tennis or whatever, you don't really look at the things that you're necessarily doing. And sometimes it's a good strategy, sometimes it's not. And here, this idea of a covert shift of attention plays a role. So when you are looking at some object and some fixation point, and then you still can pay attention to the surround. And in some sports, it's actually quite important to do that by covert shift of attention. By paying attention to here, knowing that somebody is here, I can actually pass the ball without looking at that. And that can be quite a good kind of strategy in some sports, right? So you can pay attention and distinguish or dissociate from where you are looking at. That's a covert attention. And then within this covert shift of attention in particular, you can select something or focus something and then concentrate on something. And that can be related to this general arousal, alertness, or readiness, but it's this one aspect of attention. And then after the selection, you can choose to enhance or amplify psychologically, and there is some correlates in neural mechanism as well. On the other hand, you can also attend not to process it and select not to do things. And that's a suppression or inhibition. And there is some neural correlates of that. And so these are all components of attention, and this can mean different things. But importantly, attention has been quite a popular topic of psychology even during the behavioristic era. And the reason is that attention can be operationally defined in something observable terms. And by observable, what I mean here is that the level of the neuron activity or the behaviors. So in terms of the neural activity, you can measure whether the paying attention or becoming more alert, becoming aroused, or selecting or suppressing enhancement. Does it actually result in, let's say, stronger EEG or weaker fMRI or more firing? This is a level of the neurons in terms of correlates of attention. You can measure it. And then in terms of behaviors, you can measure the pressing the buttons accuracy or speed or force or something like that. You can always define attention and its effect in terms of the behaviors on neurons. However, what's not super clear is that whether it automatically implies that there is some kind of correlates at the level of the consciousness. Okay, so for example, when you pay attention, do you become more sort of, let's say if you pay attention to the redness, does it become more red or does it become less similar to the background of this yellow? That's unclear. At least, there are lots of experiments that try to measure it, but we'll cover that, but there is not super clear evidence that consciousness itself can become enhanced or suppressed or selected by just paying attention to it in terms of phenomenology. And there are several kind of confounds in terms of also eye movements and so on. And this is the things that we will discuss this and next week. And then also there are key names and the related concepts about attention. One is that the bottom-up attention, and that's automatic stimulus-driven and task-relevant or exogenous saliency-based pre-attentive type of attention. And then top-down attention is something that is related to volition or goal or task or endogenous, something that comes in from, from your own mind. And then that's sometimes related to the attentive vision. And also there are different distinctions of attention in terms of the domains that are operating. One is the space and the time, and then feature, and then object. So when you look at the attention-related papers, then they tend to have some distinction about this. Oh, we are going to look at the effects of spatial attention, or temporal attention, or feature-based attention does this, or something like that, or whatever. So the reason why many people distinguish those different types of attention is that most likely the mechanism is to some extent similar, but there can be substantial difference. And here's a table in the Quest for Consciousness that summarizes different types of attention, at least in the case of the top-down versus bottom-up. So, for example, in terms of the spatial specificity, so spatial attention-wise, bottom-up attention is defined by the stimulus, and then it's basically operating across all the areas. So that's throughout the field of view. But top-down attention, when you're talking about spatial top-down attention, it is usually something that you pay attention either focally at the fixation point or somewhere covertly. And then about the feature of the stimulus, you can also again pay attention through the bottom-up attention. And this is also acting at all the times and all features. And let's say, something that if you are paying attention or let's say through the visual field, something that pops up as a red stimulus that captures attention and so on. And that's the kind of the bottom-up attention. And then the top-down attention, in terms of feature, you can select specific attribute. And that can be, for example, trying to find something red in the visual field, and then your eyes can quickly look at this red object. And it also can work at the level of object attention. So for example, I'm pretty bad at this, but if you are pretty good or really relatively good at managing the household things, for example, when you try to find let's say sauce in a refrigerator, you are paying attention to the refrigerator and then contents, and then open it, and then immediately you can find it, even if you don't remember it, or if you visit somebody's house and then try to find it. Something like this also happens in other domains. That's important things. And then in terms of duration, bottom-up attention needs to be captured by a transient brief cue, but top-down attention is something that is you can sustain for a long time. And then there's task dependency and volitional control. That's sort of the part of the definition of this bottom-up and top-down attention. In summary, attention can mean various psychological processes and concepts, and the three distinctions are important: selection, enhancement, and inhibition. And the reason why they are important is that the neural mechanism for each could be different, as we see in the next videos. And then each may relate with consciousness in a different way. That's more important in our discussion. And then the next thing to ask is that what are the possible relations between the attention and consciousness proposed?